Now let's look at the qualities of Venus. Venus is a personal planet compared to Jupiter and Saturn, which are social planets. But we're living in a time, in a cycle, in an era when the collective and the personal are the same. This is the Aquarian age. It's all the same. It takes Venus 225 days to travel around the sun and through all the zodiac signs. Often we're taught that the orbit is circular, but it isn't. And so it takes 225 days for Venus to travel around through all the zodiac signs. This year, Venus was in Leo, and when it was retrograde, it's going to bring up what's unconscious, what's hidden, what's wants to be seen and transformed, related to Venus and Leo themes. So remember, Venus is going to be the actor and archetype that will have this conversation with Leo, and Leo has its own personalities. So Venus is going to want to do its love, its beauty, its values work through the energies of Leo. And that's what the inquiry in the questions are about. These patterns or expressions that Venus can have through Leo can be expressed in the light or the shadow. Our current culture has a very wounded Venus. And again, Venus is around values, our ability to love and express love and enjoy and keep beauty and know what's beautiful, and the wounded Leo. So Leo is about being seen for who you are and what you have to give. And a wounded Leo won't be able to do that as the dominant expression. So why I incorporated Venus in this is as important as Venus has been working our values, why we're here, what's important, and the karmic holographic field that's out there. We have a very wounded Venus and a very collective wounded Leo, and the collective is the personal. So what do I mean by wounded? Wounded is when a being, whether it's me, a tree, a virus, a molecule, another human being, when their holism has been violated in a way that creates a wound, that then that being has to struggle and activate a survival archetype to handle the struggle, to just stay alive. We all have survival or adaptive archetypes that include our inner child, our victim, which is the guardian of our self-esteem, our saboteur, which is the guardian of our choice and our power, and our prostitute, which is our guardian of our self-worth. We have other parts of ourselves that protect and guard our innocence and our imagination. These are the parts of ourselves that protect our innocence, our imagination, our boundaries, our esteem, our worth, our value, our choice, and power. And when those are protected and empowered, and we're aware of it, remember, empowerment and awareness is consciousness, then we survive. And if we survive, we have esteem, we have worth, we are safe and secure, and we can then give our gifts. This is fundamental to talking about Venus. So the question to hone in then is, what part of Venus in Leo, what part of this conversation Venus is having with Leo is working as a co-creative force in our lives in 2023? So the Venus and Leo themes are asking us to look at our relationships. Who's in our life? Why are they in their life? Why are we in other people's lives? How do we get esteem? How do we get self-worth? What are our creative gifts? Are we connected to those? What do I value? Is it illusory, like a salary or a position or a house? Or is it this inner sourced values? How am I being visible? And how do I play? And how do I love, give, and receive love? These are all really big, important, personal and collective themes. This can help us understand we can help us understand Venus's role by looking at mythology. If this resonates with you, go for it. Aphrodite, or Venus, was the last offspring of Gaia, and Gaia was divine Mother Earth, and Uranus, which was the heavens, the divine Father. Venus is heaven, and Earth Venus is heaven and Earth through a reconciled relationship that was fostered by love. I'm sorry about my throat. That was fostered by love and desire. As she rose out of the ocean, she was tended to by Eros, or love, and Himeros, desire. Aphrodite, or Venus, then, symbolizes that which is timeless, expressing itself through beauty and form and time in a harmonious way. In a sense, she symbolizes the value found for a soul on the human journey. So in a sense, she symbolizes the value found for the soul in a human journey, really apt for these times. She also symbolizes the meeting of the sacred and the profane, as well as the spiritual with the sexual and sensual physical world. As her role, she shows us that we must honor ourselves as being in relationship to not only heaven and earth, but with each other as well, through love, through desire for our own completeness in this life. So what really motivates us to be in relationship the most, if not a desire for our own awakening and into value in ourselves through love, through relationships? So Venus helps us see the value. We find our love and our value and our worth through relationships, through engagement, through relating to other living beings and things. Thus, it is through Venus that we discover the archetype of relationship itself. That is her domain. We, however, live in a time that there is absolutely no room for the goddess or divine mother. We've been void of that the last 2,000 years, and it's been smothered in the toxic patriarchy and the Judeo-Christian culture that stripped away the earthly nature of Venus as a component and an experience of the divine through an authentic embodiment of our sensuality and sexuality. Think about all the issues we have around our bodies and sex and gender, etc. Without the goddess integrated into our psyches, our models of relationship are in dire need of evolution. Earlier, I said that we had a wounded Venus. And thus we create many wounds that we have a lot of wounds around what we experience about our relationship, love, sexuality, gender, etc. Love in our culture has been reduced to caring for. Think about this for a moment. Love in our culture has been reduced to actually just caring for others and is not really an embodied love ethic of seeing all of life as equal, of a value, and that it matters. Bell Hook's book that's called All About Love goes into depth on this concept of caring for versus a true love ethic. Venus, as the goddess of love, is not interested in loving others through a victim identity, a victim energy, a savior energy, a codependence energy, or an equivalent mentality. Venus is not interested in mothering or rescuing anyone. Venus wants to partner in love and a love that allows her to experience her own pleasure and her own beauty through a relationship with them. You could contrast this to the moon, who wants a fusion of our identity in a maternal way. So that's where the mothering energy is in the cosmos, is with the moon. But like the moon, Venus is related to the feminine principle of life, the anima. But they are very different urges in your psyche. The moon's conversation with you seeks emotional security and a sense of safety, whereas Venus seeks the affirmation of having her reflection mirrored back to her by another through relationships. And it's reciprocal. So it's reciprocal. You're also doing that for others. In other words, relationships are the means of self-discovery for Venus in terms of her essential worth. So there is a narcissistic element to our beloved Venus. And so this is all getting at who's in your life and why. Venus in Aphrodite was also a competitive and a jealous goddess compared to all the other goddesses and mortal women. So there's darker shadow side of Venus, which manifests when it's blocked, and it's very noticeable in our culture today because it's blocked. If we can't affirm ourselves and live congruent to an internal sense of our own true self-value, then we're going to be prone to maneuvering in unethical, externalized, and immoral ways to attain this surface level of affirmation and clinging to the surface and clinging to illusory values, things that aren't really real, that we think are real, like number of clicks on our social media page. If beauty is in the eye of the beholder, what do we do when that beholder doesn't see our beauty? What if our own eyes don't see our beauty? How do we affirm ourselves? How do we even define what beauty is? How do we know what our authentic values are and form our needs? All of these are questions on the journal prompt inquiry. Beauty itself is an archetype. Beauty itself is an archetype often found in what we most value in life. It is in the eyes of the beholder. Yet Venus doesn't necessarily operate in alignment to social or religious ethic in terms of what is valued and what is beautiful. Her ethics and aesthetics can only be truly grasped when one has found the lover within. Venus's ethics and aesthetics can only be truly grasped, embodied, when one has found the lover within. So Venus acts as a vessel for our life force that translates the raw power of our spirit into a fundamental life-affirming value set that guides how we love ourselves, how we love others, and aspects of life. Pretty key. Unfortunately, many people align themselves with the false Venus, one that's not intrinsically connected to their own authentic values, but instead is connected and driven by religious and culturally conditioned and adopted responses to life that masquerade as values. We are bereft of an authentic feminine goddess, divine feminine energy in our culture and in our lives. We are bereft of self-affirmation through sensuality, embodiment, relationships, and pleasure. We don't know how to hold and maintain joy. How many people do you really know that cannot really articulate and own what turns them on without any shame, any blame, any guilt? Can you? Why not? Venus is the archetypal force that urges us to discover and identify what we really value and give form to, that through our personal choices, we lay a foundation for our authenticity. Remember, the saboteur is our guardian of choice. So what choices are we making that align with true values or illusory external values? Our choices in love and beauty are often the real evidence of what we value most and what we value least in life. Values are what we live, whether we're honest about it or not necessarily what we profess to believe or say. Another huge gap in our culture is between who we say we are, whether that's individually, as an organization, as a religion, as a country, and what we actually do. There's a huge gap in what we're willing to do to honor those values. So Venus will fuel your soul's gifts, why you came here, But Venus and the human psyche will have you meet your wounds and what happened to your soul gifts. This is the part of you when it meets the wounded human ego consciousness. It usually goes into hiding, it goes underground, it stays quiet, it holds back, it's silenced, it's small, it stays in the cave, it stays safe. Until we meet that wound and transmute it and heal it and transform it, that's when our wound becomes our message. Our mess becomes our message, our gift, how we help others. So Venus in Leo, so Leo wants to be seen. Venus is asking through Leo, Venus wants your soul gifts to be seen through your choices and through your expressions. And so if you're not doing that, when Venus goes retrograde, you will be in situations and triggered to be shown where you're not doing that, where you are staying small and quiet and holding those gifts in to be safe. And it's going to be painful because the pressure, the call and response is, if not now, when? You came here to do this. If not now, when? And I especially say that to folks who are in their elderhood, grownhood, cronehood, age-wise part of life. So Venus only goes retrograde every 564 days. So that's about every year and a half or 18 months. And it stays retrograde for 40 days. So it doesn't happen every year. And for a period of time, it's asking us to pay attention to what's ready in us to grow. And so Venus was retrograde in Leo in 2023. The journal prompts will share with you some of those qualities and questions that will ask you, what did you do last year in this regard? Some of the questions include, how do others actually perceive and experience you? What is your evidence of this? And what's your intent versus what's the impact? That's really big now. What images do you present to yourself and to others in order to be enough? Shame-inspired false images, and it's not your truth. Even if there are valid reasons that anything was true, it's coming up now because you no longer need to present yourself that way. How can you be true to yourself, and will you? The thing about these times is that the pressure to be your true self is not going to go away. You could hide in the last 2,000 years, but you can't now. The price to hide is higher and greater. The stakes are greater. How can you present yourself to yourself first, and then to others that are true to your own development, your own feelings, your own values, your own evolution, your own genius and gifts, your own soul, and the own archetypes that are running you? How does the image you present nourish you? This is a Venus retrograde issue. Does it provide love through a false image or through a genuine image? Venus retrograde cycles, again, they only happen every other year or so, so you want to pay attention to that 40 days. They activate something in us called the golden section, or the golden ratio. It's something that connects each Venus retrograde, again, cycles, a timeline of 8 years, during which Venus activates a cycle of growth in you that connects you to the previous 8-year theme. This is astrology, and to go back to this, I focus on the energies here, but you could look back 8 years ago from 2023 around relationships, valuing yourself, values, etc., and how it relates to now. So July 25th to September 6th, 2015, in that period, what did you do or didn't do around that, and how are you being called to evolve? Perhaps finish something from that time period. You were asked to do that in 2023. A bottom line question here is, what archetypes and patterns have been messing you up, keeping you stuck and in a rut, repeating a loop that's relative to being seen, i.e. Leo, all the ways that I've asked above, and what new archetypes and patterns, ways of being seen, if you allowed to embody, would create something new in your life. If you go to the journal prompts now, there'll be a series of questions. Again, all may not resonate with you, but please explore what you did or didn't do with loving and kindness and compassion in 2023.